Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I apologize in advance for this kind of poor camera and lighting quality situation, but I literally just realized that the Goodreads Choice nominees for this year have been posted. I happened to see that somebody else was doing a reaction to them, and I wanted to hop in real quick and do my usual predictions. So over the last couple of years I've done this where essentially when the nominees are announced, I try to predict the top 10s in my preferred genres, which are fantasy, sci-fi, mystery, thriller, and horror. And generally, I think as years have gone on, I've had less of a sense of what the popular books are. I think really that happened with the kind of downfall of Twitter. I stopped using Twitter after Elon Musk bought it, and I was a little out of the loop at that point, and I've not quite gotten to the same level of awareness. So every year I feel like I'm less prepared to do this, but regardless, my predictions have been decently good. So I love doing this every year, and we're going to go ahead and dive in and do it for this year. I have not looked yet. I have just pulled up Goodreads and immediately set up my camera. That's why we have my lowest quality camera set up at the moment. I grabbed the thing that was closest to me that I could connect to my computer to do a screen recording video. So I just diving right in because I have no idea what to expect, and I was not prepared to do this, but I'm so excited. So let's go ahead and hop over. I think I already have it set up here. We have the view set up. So we will find out together what the nominees are in those categories, because I'm not going to look at the rest. Well, I may look at them. I'm not going to record that bit, though, because I'm not going to try and predict the other categories. Okay. So, it looks like we'll be doing them. I'm just going to go cross in order. So, mystery thriller first, fantasy, science fiction, and horror. Start with mystery thriller. I'm seeing a lot of things that I've never heard of, so that's just boding great for me. Okay, so we have Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen, The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose, Not What She Seems by Yasmin Ango, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose, Society of Lies by Lauren Ling Brown, The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak, The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave, How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, The Teacher by Frida McFadden, The Return of Ellie Black by Amiko Jean, All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker, The Heiress by Rachel Huckins, First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, and The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. Okay, I am familiar with a couple of these. I haven't read any of them. I've started Middle of the Night. I didn't get to finish it before my audiobook was due back to the library. So I've heard of some of these, and I have a few thoughts on things that I think will definitely be in the running. Let me just make myself a little list here so that I can refer back to it later. But off the top of my head, Middle of the Night is absolutely going to be in the top 10 just because it's Riley Sager, and I feel like every year he's in the top 10. He's just a popular author, and it's simply the way things are. Several of these I see have book club stickers on them, so I suspect those are going to have fairly broad reach. And Richard Osman I know is very popular for it's the Thursday Murder Club series. Nita Prose is well known for The Maid, which I feel like was in the top 10 last year, or at least was a nominee last year. So that's interesting. Although I haven't really heard anything about this particular book. So I feel like I saw The Maid a lot. And then I haven't really seen the sequel all that much. I think We Solve Murders is going to be in there, just because it's Richard Osman and that other series is so popular. I think that he's got a lot of reach as a result of that. And then I also think that Frida McFadden is having a moment right now, and at least one of hers is going to end up in the top. They both have a ton of ratings, which interestingly The Teacher has more ratings, but The Boyfriend I think I've heard of more. So this has 500,000 plus ratings. This has 200,000 plus ratings. I think of the two, I'm more likely to pick The Teacher just because it has that higher number of ratings. So I'm going to say The Teacher will probably be in our top 10. And then I'm looking at other things that have been like book club picks or have been in Book of the Month. Like I know Return of Ellie Black and The Midnight Feast were both in Book of the Month. I think The Midnight Feast is likely. It has like 100,000 ratings. I know it was. I'm pretty sure it was Book of the Month. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it was. And I know Lucy Foley is popular overall. So I think I will go ahead and say The Midnight Feast. I'm not super confident on these guesses, I will say that. What else? This was like a Good Morning America book club, I think. Let's take a look. I think it was. As we wait for it to load. Yeah. Correct. So that one, I think also has, it's like 200,000 ratings. So pretty big reach. I'm going to put Listen for the Lie in part because my work book club actually picked this as our read for the latter part of the year. So I'm about to read this one. I'm planning to read it this weekend. So that's interesting, and I guess I'm basing my putting it in the top 10 on the fact that my coworkers, who I have no sense of how bookish they are in general, have chosen it. Like, they were aware enough of it to choose it for a work book club, and it does have 200,000 ratings. So I feel like that's pretty broad reach. What else? Because there's some other things here that I know I've heard of a lot in online spaces, but that doesn't always translate to things being popular in the Goodreads Choice Awards. Like, The Last One at the Wedding, I think, has been very popular, and where I'm not interested in it just because I know what I know about the twist in the author's first book. I'm not particularly interested in picking up something from this author. I've heard about it a lot, but it only has like 16,000 ratings, and some of these have hundreds of thousands of ratings. So, on the one hand, I kind of want to put The Last One at the Wedding on the list, but at the same time, I don't think it's actually going to get enough votes. I don't think enough people have actually read it for it to get enough votes to get in the top 10. Whereas, like, Home is Where the Bodies Are, I've seen on, like, Barnes & Noble's, like, big display shelves. At least my Barnes & Noble, they've had it, like, out on their main display shelves. I know The God of the Woods has also been quite well received this year. We have Sally Hepworth and Sarah Pekkanen, which I think are fairly popular authors. Although this doesn't actually have that many ratings, so maybe not. We currently have 5, so I need 5 more. I think I am going to say The God of the Woods, because I've heard a lot of good things about that, and I've been seeing it around a lot, and not just like in typically bookish online spaces, so I feel like that one could make it in the top 10. And then we have like a couple more that have been in book clubs. We have First Lie Wins, which has like almost 500,000 ratings, and All the Colors of the Dark is another one that I've seen around that was, it was a Jenna's book club pick, I believe. So I feel like those could easily... This one didn't get as many. This is also a Reese's Book Club pick, but it has a lot fewer ratings. I think I'm going to go with First Lie Wins. And just because it has so many ratings. And it has a pretty decent rating overall. 4.03 is not bad at all. See, that doesn't have as many either. I'm having to rely a little more on ratings this year just because, again, I don't feel like I've been as aware of what's popular in this genre this year. I haven't been reading as much mystery thriller. I've really leaned into horror this year, so I just haven't been as aware. And I feel like, although The Boyfriend has a lot fewer ratings than The Teacher, I feel like anything Frida McFadden right now is likely to end up in the top 10 because she's so popular. So I am going to go ahead and put both of her books on this list. So what do we have now? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I need 2 more. I feel like that one doesn't have very many ratings at all. So I feel like that one is probably not. The Mystery Guest does actually have like a ton of ratings. It has an okay, like, overall rating. I think I'm gonna put Home is Where the Bodies on is Where the Bodies Are. I don't know why that title is so hard for me to say. I'm gonna put that one on the list just because I have seen like several special editions for this, and I know Barnes & Noble did their own special edition for it. There was like a limited one with a like VCR looking slipcase. So I feel like that one has gotten some interest, some hype outside of just like typical spaces online. So I feel like that has a fairly strong chance of being in the top 10. And then if I need to pick one more, I feel like it's going to be one of the other book club ones, because I feel like those get a lot broader reach just because their book clubs are run by celebrities. So I feel like those get a lot of reach. Although actually The Maid has tons of ratings, and this one, okay, it has over 100,000. Oh, and it's got like a 4.37. I'm going to put All the Colors of the Dark just because that's a lot of ratings to have that high of a overall rating. I feel like I'm saying ratings a lot. It's a lot of people have read it, and apparently like, most of those people thought it was good because it's like a 4.3. So that's pretty good. So my final predictions for this category are going to be Middle of the Night, We Solve Murders, The Teacher, The Midnight Feast, Listen for the Lie, The God of the Woods, First Lie Wins, The Boyfriend, Home is Where the Bodies Are, and All the Colors of the Dark. So that is that for Mystery Thriller. Mystery Thriller. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say today. I guess it's been a long day or something. So we'll move on now to the fantasy genre. Okay, I'm more familiar with several of these. So we've got Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff, lots of the Damned this year. Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, which I know was in a book club, not a book club, a book box. The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer, The Foxwife by Yangzi Chu. Words are apparently not my strong suit tonight, so please bear with me. Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, An Academy for Liars, The Tainted Cup, which I did read earlier this year and loved, Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown, When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, The Blackbird Oracle by Deborah Harkness, Five Broken Blades by May Corland, The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song, Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune, A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, which would love a T. Kingfisher to get in the top 10, The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman, A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland, The Dead Cattail Assassins by Peter Jelly Clark, A Song to John Rivers by Anne Liang, and The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. So there's a few that I kind of want to guess early on just because, hang on, this is fantasy, right? I just want to take a quick look at something. Okay, there it is. I was about to say, I think Sarah J. Maas had a new book this year, and I don't see it. It's in the romantasy category. And I'm not terribly interested in romantasy, so we're going to go back. So, there's a few by, like, major names that I feel like just by default they have a big fan base and are definitely going to make it, even though I haven't necessarily heard the greatest reviews of them. I have heard good things about The Warm Hands of Ghosts, and it does have a fairly good rating overall. Like, 4.01 is solid. So I am going to go ahead and put that on the list. Just because I know Catherine Arden is popular, and I feel like there were two authors, her and Leigh Bardugo, that both came out with some sort of kind of like gothic historical story this year, and this is the one I've heard the better reviews of. That said, Leigh Bardugo, very popular. This has a lot of ratings in comparison to some of these others, and 3.8 isn't terrible. So I feel like I also need to put The Familiar on this list, even though I haven't heard great reviews personally. Like, the people I've seen read it have not necessarily reviewed it real well. I think it's overall going to be a popular book. And then the last one of those that, like, set is going to be Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. Just because the first book in this series was so popular when it came out, and this has a respectable 4.3 rating with 42,000 ratings. So, we'll put that on the list as well. After that, I have less of a sense because there were some books here that either I've just not heard much at all, or I've heard generally negative reviews, or, like, I have seen people read them and like them, but they don't have very many ratings, so I don't think that they're going to have as broad a reach. Some of these, like the Book of Doors, I've never heard of this. This is a lot more ratings than some of the other books that I have heard of and have seen people read. So, like, An Academy for Liars, I feel like I've seen everywhere, but it only has, like, just under 5,000 ratings. So, yeah, my sense of what was popular in this category is, I think, a little skewed this year. I know the first book in the Emily Wilde series was really popular, and this has quite a few ratings, so I think I'm going to put this on there. This, Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. Also, if you hear it crinkling in the background, that is my cat. He's having a great time. He has some crinkly paper. He's delighted. Also, he has a cat toy. I've just realized he's got a cat toy over there, so he's just having a great time. So apologies for the crinkling in the background. It's just Elwood having a nice little evening. We let him have his fun. What are some of these other ones? Several of these have pretty good ratings. I did not realize it was going to have a 4.57 rating. I've not finished Empire of the Vampire yet. So I feel like I kind of need to put Empire of the Damned on the list. This was another one where the author is quite popular. I haven't actually seen anybody read Empire of the Damned, so I don't know what people are saying about it, but it does have like a 4.57 on Goodreads. So that tells me that the people who are reading it are enjoying it, so it seems fairly likely that it'll make it through. I really want to put A Sorcerer Comes to Call on here just because I really like T. Kingfisher, and it does have a pretty good rating with that 4.15, but I don't know. I don't know if T. Kingfisher is going to be well known enough, popular enough to get enough votes. I don't think A Song to Darn Rivers will make it. It was a Good Morning America pick, but it still has a lot fewer ratings than some of these other books. I know that The Dead Cattail Assassins was pretty anticipated for several people, but again, not a lot of ratings. I just feel very, like, out of touch with what's out there in the series, or not in the series, in the genres that I read this year. Like, even though I keep track of my anticipated releases, I feel like I've just not been as connected to what's popular this year, and that's making this harder than usual. I am going to go ahead and put the Book of Doors, just because it's got more ratings than some of these other ones, and it's got a 4.04. Even though I've never heard of it, it has more ratings than a lot of the other books that I have heard of. So I have to give it some credit where credit is due, you know? But the rest of these are harder to pick because a lot of them have very few ratings. And I haven't heard reviews for many of them. How many do I have? I have 6, so I need 4 more. Foxwife has a decent number of ratings. Oh, and that one has 20,000 ratings. The hard thing to balance is, like, how many ratings does it have versus what is the actual average? Because I feel like sometimes things get lots of ratings, but they're not actually that popular. The Blackbird Oracle, though, I think that could get in the top 10 because I know the, what is that series called? Let me look at this again. All Souls series is popular due in part to the TV show. So I think the Blackbird Oracle could be there. So I need 3 more. I think because they have so many more ratings and they have solid averages, I haven't heard of either of these, The Foxwife or The Lost Story, but I think I am going to put them. Let me look at this one. Oh yeah, that sounds like very general appeal fantasy. Chronicles of Narnia. Fairy tale for grown-ups. Yeah, okay. I'm going to put The Lost Story on here. And that brings us to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need 2 more. I really want to put The Tainted Cup just because I personally really enjoyed this. So we're gonna be wishful thinkers and say that The Tainted Cup will make it in the top 10. I know the previous series by that author was popular, so maybe. Could be. And, like, I think I heard a lot of stuff about When Among Crows this year, but it doesn't have very many ratings. I just realized that A Sorcerer's Come to Call does have more ratings than The Foxwife. I am going to put a T. Kingfisher on here. I have not read this one. I actually haven't read very much at all of her fantasy. But I love her horror, and so I really want her to make it in the top 10 and win at some point, because I just think her writing is wonderful. I do want to try some of her fantasy stories at some point. Words. I just haven't read any of them yet. I think I'm going to start with Sword Heart, though. I know that came out several years ago, but I've heard just, like, such good things about it. So I think, does that give me 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It does. So, final predictions for fantasy. The Warm Hands of Ghosts, The Familiar, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, Empire of the Damned, The Book of Doors, The Blackbird Oracle, The Lost Story, The Tainted Cup, and A Sorceress Comes to Call. Moving on to sci-fi. Just click on over here. Once again, I don't know most of these books. This one's going to be really hard. I've heard of like a couple of these. We've got Antibot by Sierra O'Rear, The Black Box of Doom by Jason Pargin, Yours for the Taking by Gabrielle Korn, not sure. Beautyland by an author whose name is in cursive, Marie-Helene Bertino. The Blueprint by Regiana Rashad. The Family Experiment by John Mars. Extinction by Douglas Preston. Moon of the Turning Leaves by Wabgesha Grace. The Other Valley by Scott Alexander Howard. The Stardust Grail by Yume Kitase. Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. Orbital by Samantha Harvey. Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. The Ministry of Time, another one that the author's name is Kalian Bradley, again with the cursive on the front cover. Baby X by Kira Peikoff. Skyfall of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey. In Ascension by Martin McInnes. Red Side Story by Jasper Ford. And I Cheerfully Refuse by Leif Enger. I've heard of some of these. Again, we have a category where I haven't read any of them. I do really want to read The Stardust Grail. I think this one sounds wonderful. I've heard so many good things about this one. Interestingly, it has very few ratings in comparison with some of, like, only 960 ratings. When did this one come out? Because I know Jeff Vandermeer is, like, very popular, but, because, like, Annihilation is very popular, but this only has 900. This is 55 ratings on this page. When did it come out? Oh, it's really new. It came out in October. So there's probably people who are, like, reading the earlier parts of the series to get to that one. I know I've seen The Ministry of Time everywhere, and it does have, like, a ton of ratings, 68,000. And Service Model I've seen quite a few times, but there's a lot fewer. Mercy of the Gods, I think, will be popular because the authors also wrote the Leviathan Wakes series, whatever that one's called, that became a TV show. So I feel like that one's going to be popular, so I'm going to go ahead and put The Mercy of the Gods. And I also think that, where did it go? The Ministry of Time will make it. This was another one I saw promoted in a lot of places that weren't just, like, online bookish spaces. And, like, at my Barnes & Noble, they had big displays of it everywhere. And it was also a Good Morning America pick and has quite a few ratings. So I feel like that's a solid pick. This doesn't have as many ratings, but Moon of the Turning Leaves is a sequel to a book that I've heard excellent things about. So I'm going to kind of keep that one in mind as a potential. I also, like, I think the John Mars one is going to make it on there. I haven't heard of this one, but I know John Mars is a really well-known author. So I feel like just by, like, name recognition, that one has a chance of making it. What are some of these other ones? I've seen Antibot before, and that has quite a few ratings. Some of these have, like, very few. Like, The Blueprint has very few. I think I'm going to put Antibot because I have seen that one in a lot of places as well. I haven't actually heard any reviews of it, but I've definitely seen the cover a lot. I know Jasper Ford is quite popular as well, which, interestingly enough, I read part of a Jasper Ford series when I was a kid. I read the like, Thursday Next series. I think I read, like, the first 2 or 3, and, like, the first book I was obsessed with. I loved it. And then, like, the further I got in, I felt like it just got so overly convoluted that I couldn't keep up with anything that was happening. So I just completely fell away from that series. But I know that I see some of his other books. Like, is it Shades of Grey? I think is one of them that I've seen a lot. Yeah, I feel like I see his books a lot, even though I felt like some of it was a little overly convoluted. Some of these other ones, I don't know most of these. And a lot of them don't have very many ratings, which I think is interesting. Why does the name Douglas Preston seem familiar? Yeah, a lot of these don't have very many ratings, so I don't know what to expect here. Let's look. I want to see what else Douglas Preston has done. Okay, that's why. It's the Preston and Child. It's the Preston of Preston and Child. That would be why the name seems familiar. Okay. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put Extinction on the list as well. Now that I know that that's why I know that name. Some of these other ones. So many of these just have, like, almost no ratings. And Ascension has quite a few. And I feel like I've seen this cover before. This one's hard. How many do I have? I do have 5, so I gotta pick 5 more. Also, I'm not seeing as many that were, like, book club picks. I'm not seeing as many that have that, like, sticker thing on them. So that's interesting. I guess sci-fi is just, like, less likely to get picked for that, maybe? I'm gonna go ahead and put Moon of the Turning Leaves just because I know I've seen the first book in the series around a lot. And it has a decent number of ratings. It's, respectable 6,000. So, we'll go with that. The Other Valley, which I've not heard of, does have 11,000, which is a lot more than some of these others. So I think I'm going to go with The Other Valley. And then I kind of want to put Service Model on there. It doesn't have as many ratings. It's got a decent average rating. But I feel like Adrian Tchaikovsky is a fairly, well-known name in sci-fi. So I feel like it may have, a little bit of a leg up because of that. So I'm going to say Service Model. Not needing 2. I've got 8. What I'm finding very interesting that's occurring to me is that, if I recall correctly, Goodreads Choice is chosen largely through, the number of ratings that things have in a category. So the fact that there's some things on here that have very few ratings is interesting to me. I may be wrong about that. If anybody knows more about how they actually, pick what are the nominees, I would love to know more because I'm interested in the fact that so many of these have just, very few ratings. I'm guessing this one might be new because... No, it's not. It's from February. Okay. Well, never mind. I was like, maybe it's new. Maybe it just hasn't had time to get that many readers. But no, it's not new. I think I've seen the Beautyland cover once, and it has more ratings than a lot of the others, and a pretty solid score overall. So we're going to go ahead and put Beautyland. And we need one more, and my inclination is to go with Absolution, because it's a sequel to the Annihilation, the Southern Reach trilogy. That series. And Annihilation, if I remember correctly, is made into a movie. So, my inclination is to put Absolution, but it has so few ratings that I'm not sure. Unless people who have read the earlier books just, vote for this one, even having not read it. So... is this one Orbital? I feel like I haven't heard the name Samantha Harvey. What else has she written? Go over here. I don't actually recognize any of these. Okay. Oh, that one actually has quite a few ratings, too. I haven't heard about any of this. I don't know any of these books. I'm really torn between putting Absolution on the list or going with this I Cheerfully Refuse, just because it seems to have gotten a lot broader reach. And it's got a 4.01, which is pretty good. I'm going to go with I Cheerfully Refuse. I know nothing about it, but I like the title. And it does seem to have gotten some traction, because it's got 10,000 reviews, which is a lot more than several of these other books. So, I think that gives me 10. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, okay. So, final predictions for sci-fi are The Mercy of the Gods, The Ministry of Time, The Family Experiment, Annie Bot, Extinction, Moon of the Turning Leaves, The Other Valley, Service Model, Beautyland, and I Cheerfully Refuse. I don't feel great about those predictions because I know so little about any of the books on this list, but we're just going to move on. We're going to go to our final category, which is horror. So diving into horror, get this all set up for my list. This one I do recognize quite a few books on, and I see a few that I immediately want to put on the list for a few reasons. So we have You Like It Darker by Stephen King, Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle, We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver, The Bog Wife by Kay Chronister, Indian Burial Ground by Nick Medina, Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman, The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook, So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison, Murder Road by Simone St. James, Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert, I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, and The Angel of Indian Lake, also by Stephen Graham Jones, House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias, This Cursed House by Adele Sandine. I was almost going to read that as Sandier, but that is definitely an N, not an R. A Sunny Place for Shady People by Mariana Enriquez, The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, Blood Like Mine by Stuart Neville, What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher, My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanna Van Veen, and Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. So the ones that I immediately want to put on here are The Angel of Indian Lake, because I feel like that was a really anticipated series ender, although interestingly, it has a lot fewer ratings, I guess because it's the end of a series, than I Was a Teenage Slasher. But I think it has a higher overall score. It does. So it has a lot fewer ratings, but I know I've seen a lot more mixed reviews for I Was a Teenage Slasher, so I am going to go with The Angel of Indian Lake. I feel like Stephen Graham Jones is a well-known enough author that, in name recognition, will really give his books a boost. And I know that a lot of people really liked the conclusion to that series, at least the people I saw that were reading it really liked that as a conclusion of the series. So I feel like that one's a pretty solid pick. And then there's a few others here that I know I've seen everywhere. So We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. This is 63,000 ratings and a fairly good rating overall for a horror book. 3.77 is fairly good, I think. So we're going to put We Used to Live Here. I actually have read that one. I've read more on this, I think, than most of the others. I have read What Feasts at Night. I've read We Used to Live Here. So maybe I've only read 2. I have several of these on my shelf, though, so I've definitely heard of more of them. Confidently, I've read more of these. Read 2. Technically, more than the sci-fi category, so I'm not entirely wrong. Some of these other ones, I'm not sure. I haven't really heard about The Bog Wife. I actually have this on my shelf, and I mean to read it soon, but I haven't seen many people read it yet. I think this is one of the Patreons that I'm on. This is the book club pick for the month. I feel like Chuck Tingle is fairly popular, and Bury Your Gaze, I heard a lot of good things about earlier in the year, so I feel like that could be. I also think that Josh Mallerman is another one that I think he's going to get through by name recognition, but I also have heard really good things about Incidents Around the House, where I don't think I heard as good things about his book, was it last year or the year before, Daphne? So I'm going to put Incidents Around the House. I've seen it around a lot of people have been picking it for their book clubs, and I've heard largely positive reviews for it. I also think the Mariana Enriquez book is going to make it through. That's another one that I feel like people are fairly familiar with, especially after our share of Night a year or two ago, so I think that one could easily make it through. That's A Sunny Place for Shady People. And then The Eyes Are the Best Part is another one that I immediately want to put on this top 10. It has fewer reviews than some of the others, but I saw this one a lot, and it had multiple special editions and book boxes. So I feel like it's a pretty safe pick. I feel like I saw that, because of the special editions. I was seeing it around a lot, so I think it got some, like, word of mouth. Is that the phrase? I don't even know at this point. The eyes are the best part. Is going on the list. I really want to put T. Kingfisher on there. This one actually did get a pretty good number of ratings, 21,000. And I think this one wasn't quite as popular as What Moves the Dead, but I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. So I want it to be on the list. A trend you will find here is me going, I want it to be on the list because I personally liked it. Some of these have, like, no ratings. Murder Road has a lot more ratings than I would have guessed, because what I think is interesting is I think it got pretty broad reach. One, because Simone St. James is a well-established author, and two, it was in at least one book box I know of, but I actually haven't seen anybody read it. I haven't seen anyone actually talking about it, so I think that that's interesting. It has that many ratings, but I am going to go ahead and put it on the list because it did get those special editions, so I feel like that really helps circulate the name of a book, at least, and get it on people's radars. How did this one do? Not as well. Also feel like Stephen King is going to make it just because Stephen King. So, like, he's on the list. He's obviously going to make it through because he's Stephen King. No other reason needed. So that gives us what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Need 3 more. This does have a lot of ratings, but it doesn't have a lot of great ratings. Okay. I've seen Diablo a lot, and it has a pretty good average rating for horror, 3.87. Oh, it has actually the same rating as My Darling Dreadful Thing, which is interesting. But it has many more ratings overall. So I think I'm going to put Diablo on the list. And for my own satisfaction, I'm going to put What Feast at Night on the list. I really enjoyed this one, and I think people didn't like it quite as much as the first book, but I think it's great, and it does have a lot more ratings than I actually thought it would have. So I think that's interesting, and I'm excited to see that because, again, I really liked it. So what else? I think I need, one more? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, okay. So we need one more. What else is going on this list? Book of Witching. I kind of want to put So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. Because it has more ratings than some of the others, but also I feel like Rachel Harrison is, like, fairly well liked as a kind of comedic horror author. I get the sense that her books have, like, some sort of, like, slightly funny twist to them. I might be entirely wrong about that, but the premises always sound a little bit like they've got just, like, a slight comedic twist to them, which I think makes her quite popular in terms of, like, a very readable horror author. And it's got so many more ratings than some of the other ones that I've heard of. I've heard of Sleep Tight, but I don't know what actually anybody thought of that one. What's this one? Ooh. Southern Gothic Horror debut. That's going in my check it out later tab. I'm gonna go with So Thirsty. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of people actually talk about reading this one, but it's a vampire book from an author that I think is fairly well known for her kind of horror with a twist kind of books. So that's what we're going to go with. So my final predictions for horror are The Angel of Indian Lake, We Used to Live Here, Incidents Around the House, A Sunny Place for Shady People, The Eyes Are the Best Part, Murder Road, You Like It Darker, Diavola, What Feasts at Night, and So Thirsty. And yeah, that's it. That's my 4 categories. So we'll hop back over to this view. I feel like this is the least confident I have felt in a prediction so far. I think I've been doing this since like 2020 or 2021. I've done this a few years in a row. I can't remember exactly when I started it. but I've done it for a few years. Maybe it was 2022. Might have been less frequent than I think. But yeah, I feel like in previous years, like the first year that I did this, I was really confident. Like I was really aware of what was popular. I had heard of basically every book on the list. And this year I feel like, other than horror, I have not heard of very many of the books at all. Fantasy I did okay, but a lot of these I'm just not familiar with at all. So I feel like I'm kind of unmoored in these guesses and these decisions. It's always fun to see, so I will be doing a follow-up video to this when we get the second round information. We'll do a reaction looking at whether I was correct or not. I just think it's fun to do, whether I'm right or not. It's fun to like take a look at what's been nominated and see if I can predict what's going to be in the next round. It's just a like fun, silly little game, but it is the one this year that I've just like felt the most unsure on. I've never felt this unsure on my predictions. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that turns out, and I'm excited to see what actually makes it in the top 10. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you disagree with any of my predictions, or if there's any that you like particularly feel are definitely going to make it to the top 10. I would love to know what your predictions are as well. I also really hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.